But I remember when actually I don't know, it was maybe June or something, and we were starting thinking on what to do for the next academic year, and we said, of course we're going to be back in campus, by September, because it was like really, it did sound impossible. Just imagine if last year they would have told you, you're going to be in this situation for a whole year at least.
Yeah.
If it were like,
I mean, we did have a brief period in September, October that we actually went to campus for a couple of, what was it?
I know. What happens now? So I've seen that you've got kind of blended, right? So some people it's there, but all wearing masks. It's a bit weird, like, everyone wearing masks, but like one every 2 meters or something. Yeah. So it feels like,
And then some people attended online. So there was also a big screen with the rest of the people. So it was very weird, actually, but it only lasted for a while. And then we just went back to online mode.
So you're fully online now?
Now I think it's blended, but I assume that a lot of people are still online. So if someone is in Italy, they will probably go to the campus and do in presence, but
like they have the option.
Depends. It's very individual at this point.
But it's going to...
They are trying to keep the possibility to do the studios in presence. So who have the possibility can go there and follow the lessons in presence, but a lot of people are still online.
Yeah, but Emmanuel, I know you've been starting your internship in the workshop.
Yeah, I am still doing
How is that gonna work?
Like we had a stop from December to the beginning of February, and then we started again, and I'm now doing it, but the situation is kind of getting worse.
Yeah.
So they are saying that probably will be again a red zone, like a lockdown area. So probably my internship will, be longer than predicted, but I hope it'll be fun.
What can we do?
I mean, nothing. But
can't do nothing.
Yeah. But we'll see. I don't know. For now, it's okay, but it can change every day. The colors, at least. So we'll see.
It's so confusing. So my mom, she's in Milano, but I understand. She was like, "Oh yeah, I think tomorrow we're gonna be orange." Not sure what that means really. Maybe you can get a coffee, because in Italy it's quite difficult. So it's not like here, which like all shops are closed and that's it. So in Italy it's a bit more like you can get a coffee, but just outside. But with a coffee you can maybe get a little bit of a sweet, but just if you get it with a coffee and in a sunny day between 10 and 11. I was just like, my mom was like, well, I'm not sure what this is even. I can go to the supermarket and that's it.
Yes, exactly. It's very confusing with the colors, and I don't
here too.
Yes,
the days, right?
People know what it means. It's just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, but like you can go to shopping centers, but just on weekdays because they're closed on the weekends. So they've got so many. This is typical Italian, to kind of make things hugely complicated.
Yeah. It is very hard to keep track of what you can do, where you can go, from what time, and it's just like, okay.
You have to read the instructions.
You give up, yes, and also the numbers.
Yes, you just give up, and you're like, okay, now it's orange, let's go with it, and that's it.
Okay, I think we've got somebody starting a meeting somewhere else.
Yeah, We've
got.
Can someone message Aziz and tell him he's in the wrong place?
We've been using Teams as well in Milano, right? Last year, yeah. And I know that Polymia has switched to a different platform this year, so I'm not sure WebEx or whatever.
WebEx,
But we've been using Teams, and so far it's really good. But of course you can get lost in Teams as in everywhere. We got students like But maybe we can kind of have a start. What do you think?
So there's quite a few people here.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the official presentation then. So welcome, very welcome to Emanuel, Christina, and Sofia. Alessandro can't be with us, but there was a fourth person in your group in Milano. So Christina, Sofia, and Emanuel, they are joining us usually from Milano, from an educational point of view, because we know Christina, she's not in Milano at the moment. And they are now finishing their master degree. And so, you know, for most of them, it's, you know, it's a matter of starting the master degree thesis and doing them. So it's really a kind of an exciting moment. The work they will present today, it's the outcome of a failed collaboration that we had last year. So you probably don't even know yourselves, because last year with Naomi, we have planned a really nice collaboration in between your lot in Milano that we didn't know yet, and our lot in year 3 in London. And the whole purpose was to have, you know, the two cohorts working together and you know, exchanging ideas, and of course, you know, you are all supposed to work on the same topic and on the same series of sites. You might remember you were meant to come to London at the beginning of March, but of course, you know, because it's been quite a crazy year, that never happened. So we ended up actually starting the course the week Milano went in lockdown for the first time ever. So I flew to Milano, and then I couldn't do anything just by being inside. And so nothing really happened on that side. So you never came to London. We never came to Milano. You've never met the students, but you haven't even met your, you know, your peers in the course. We never met each other. So I don't know if you are tall or short. I haven't got a clue. And, you know, it's been really the first fully online ever course with people never ever seen each other since. But I've got to say that, you know, maybe, I don't know, with the anxiety of trying to find a solution, and, you know, the idea that we had, you know, to demonstrate that we could do everything, even, you know, in those circumstances. The experience has been really, really nice, and I think we had a lot of fun, and the work you have produced, it's been excellent, really. So, you know, it was like the first time we all did, you know, a series of very strange things, but it worked out really, really good. There was a lot of energy, I think, and so we have invited you because, of course, you know, what you did is super relevant for our students, even if the structure is slightly different. So you see 3 of them, then we said it's 4 of them, because in Milano, the structure is quite different. So they've been working for 4 months. So the course, let's say, pretty much end of February, end of June. And there is a first part of the course in which they've been working together. So the design proposal, the big design proposal, is being done by the 4 of them working together, and they will now present you what they've been coming up with. And then there is an individual part that they have developed, you know, one by one. So it's a sort of a focus that each of them will show and explain. But you will see that the overall structure of the, even if it, of course, it's been tweaked, these kind of different things happening, but the overall structure of the program, it's very familiar to our students, because, you know, it's the brief that me and Naomi did for, you know, for the lot in London. So that was the thing that was meant to. So you will find a lot of very familiar thing, but at the same time, you will see also a very different approach. So it's really interesting to see how these 4 guys ended up like working. So yes, well, we said Alessandro is not here because Alessandro is now starting a double degree program with Tongji University in Shanghai, and today he had the first meeting online. So he wrote me a note he couldn't be here, but we've got here Emmanuel, And Emmanuel is now starting his internship. The internship is part of the master degree program. And then we've got Christina. And Christina, she's from Slovakia and is now in Bratislava. And she is starting her master thesis designing care homes for Alzheimer's. And she will start soon her internship as well. While Sophia, she's starting a master thesis on adaptive reuse, and she will soon start her internship as well. So, I'm sure you will find this presentation extremely exciting because we've got as guests year 2 and year 1. Don't use the chat because not everyone is going to be able to access the chat. I'm talking to the students now. But like, if you got any question for them, raise your hand. Hopefully we're going to have a few minutes at the end if you want to know anything. I'm sure you will find the presentation extremely exciting. And now it's to you.
Okay, so I'm gonna share the screen now.
Yeah.
Tell me if you see it.
Yes. Okay, perfect. So I guess I will be starting the presentation.
Okay.
So good morning, everyone. We are, or at least we were for the time being, group number 5, and this was our project developed on the topic of the edible futures, which was called the Habitat. So Habitat was developed to basically intercept the future trends in the world of food and beverage, which was based on the concepts of insertion, both spatial and conceptual. It works with the convergence of tradition and innovation and the relation between known and unknown. Habitat basically represents spatial division into further small internal habitats, which are designed for education, recreation, and work purposes, by creating a deep link between the public and the private. Here you can see our manifesto, which was developed as a little conceptual preview expressing the main idea behind our project. We can go next. Yeah. So we basically started our project with an in-depth site analysis. So we had several locations that we could choose from, and all were within the same area. So the first key was basically to identify and define the entire neighborhood, the relationship with the city, the surroundings, the connectivity, the key attractions, etc. So all the possible locations were more or less in central London, scattered in the base of Lowline, the old rail viaducts, which are transformed into a walking road. So it was quite characterized by diverse communities, hubs of entertainment, creativity, and industry. So here we can see our chosen site actually as we move deeper in scale. So it was called Union Street Arches, and it was actually located under the existing railway. If you can go back just for 1 second. Thanks. So here we just continued by defining the nearby zones, reflecting the variety of the functions in the closed neighborhood, and basically saying that the space doesn't necessarily have one clear function, but it's a very diverse community. We can go to the next one. Okay, so here we started looking at the actual existing site, looking at the analysis of the existing materiality, understanding the leveling, the site conditions, which basically consisted, as you can see, of several interconnected arches, which played a central role in the entire project development. So then we moved on to, basically, in order to start spatially organizing the site, we needed to understand the connection to the surroundings through an analysis of the existing entrances. So on the left, we have the main entrance with another more isolated one on the right, which could potentially serve for staff or as a more private access, basically. So then we went on with looking more in depth into the site. So it was quite large and it had very limited entrances and connectivity. And due to this, we basically wanted to allow for more interaction with the public through a reactivation of the area in form of a promenade or sort of walkthrough. On the right page, we can see sun analysis. So because the sun was located under the existing railway and it was in the proximity of a few multi-story buildings, one of the key aspects in our further intervention was to actually analyze and assess the amount of natural sunlight the space would get throughout a year, which was not very much. And in that sense, we wanted to create something more open and more welcoming. And this was basically the start of our intervention. So we decided to open up one of the arches, which originally served as a main entrance, into a public walkthrough. This would create a very dramatic change in the flow and in the opportunities of the entire site, reintegrating basically the entire area So we were thinking of the site in a more urban connection as well as, and not only within the interiors. And now we're actually getting to the design strategy. So this was the definition of our basic ideas, which had to be, of course, related to the topic of food futures that would further define our activities in the space. So here on the right side, we can see the initial aim, which was basically establishing a connection between sustainable approaches within food growth and processing. So we wanted to combine the aspects of reusing waste combined with enjoying food, while bringing in a sort of innovative aspect, reconnecting the user with the city, and at the same time trying to promote awareness. So this was our initial aim. So we had to define the typology of our function, and we called it a campus, which has several meanings. It was meant to be a place of gathering, a place for bringing together people with different interests, different backgrounds, while providing them with a multifunctional space. So sort of aiming to find a balance between learning and creating. So our goal was to create a connection between the public and private through these three main participatory groups. So we have the public, we have the startups, and then we have the semi-public. So as the main topic is food waste with focus on sustainability, the main function the space offers is a sort of rental space for startups where they can develop their innovative food-related product through some solutions, through cooking, through experimenting. Then we have the semi-public zone, which focuses mainly on raising awareness. So it hosts occasional workshops and courses, which are both for the general public and for the startups. And again, of course, it focuses on food waste and its futures. It sort of creates a hybrid space between the functions. And lastly, we have the public, which is more as a temporary space where users have the ability to taste or to buy the created products, which creates the final link between the production and the consumption. So in a sense, we try to create its own circular economy, which is embedded in our project. And we have the three, of course, participatory groups. So the customers, the public, the workshop participants, and then the startup workers. So in order to start thinking in more spatial terms within the activities, we needed to assess, of course, the SWOT analysis. And in this case, we were considering both the urban and the site interventions. So, for example, the fact that there were too many gastronomical businesses in the area, as well as the fact that the site was quite enclosed with the lack of sunlight. These led us into bringing in a new typology and finding a function that could basically provide a partnership with the existing businesses instead of a form of competition. And it led us into opening up the pedestrian walkthrough. And on the right page, we started zoning our proposed functions. So the aim was to provide a space following the start of work requirements. So we needed a fully equipped shared kitchen, indoor farming. So we basically divided the space into production. These were the vertical farms which would support the experimentation and innovative aspects of the cooking. Then we had the technology, so these were food labs. And finally, we have waste reuse, which was focused on things as food packaging, shared kitchens, and testing area. And then these products were finally displayed and up for sale in the public zone. So these would be the market and the bar. And lastly, we have the workshop hosting various courses based on the startup typology. So the main goal was basically to create a multi-purpose space. And this initial hierarchy sort of serve our understanding of how these functions are related between the public and the private that we would later apply on in the plan. And here we can see like our initial mood board of how we imagine the space to be. So the coexisting activities, creating a sort of vibrant atmosphere and the interaction between the startups and the private and the public. We wanted to sort of show an environment which was fully transparent. And on the right, we have the sort of use of the activities throughout the year, creating a constant interaction between all of them. And we can finally move to the actions. So this chapter focuses on the spatial division. So understanding the positioning of the public and private functions and defining them in a more greater detail. So we started by looking at the experience. So we have two primary participants. This is the public and the startups. Together, they should be forming this form of educational environment which has an innovative approach related to food futures. So this connection was created by two things. We have the spatial organization, so the hierarchy and the distribution of spaces, as well as the visual and more emotional side, which would later be translated into our concept. So the organization, of course, is based on the urban reactivation, so the opening up of the arch, as we have mentioned. and as well as the insertion of several elements, which will be mentioned later on in more depth, and together they created the interior distinction between the activities. And now the main question was, how can we visually actually present both of these concepts in a uniform manner, which we answered with the simple principle of known and unknown. So we wanted to provide the users with a sort of gradual path towards innovation by incorporating traditional and known factors. So this form of tradition towards the future and innovation would feel more effortless and more natural. And now we can actually see the place. So this was the existing proposal plan. And first off, we have completely cleared it out to see what we can do with the space. And we started considering the main circulation because the place is quite well connected, and we can see they have quite an interconnected grid of spaces. So very good accessibility. So following this, we defined this urban reactivation. So this opening up of the arches, which was leading from the main entrance and providing a public flow throughout the entire area. The next step was the definition of the main public zones. So these would be scattered along the main pathway, which we saw as the most functional and efficient space that would be drawing the users inside of the space. And next we can see the interconnection between these two aspects. So our idea on how the grid and the flow would actually work out. And then we have the first proposal on the interactive zoning. So in the middle, we have the vertical farms, which form the connection between the public and the private. And then we have the public areas as the market, the bar, the workshop, which are scattered along the pathway. And we decided to put the more functional aspects which are related to startups. So the laboratories, the kitchens, and the offices in the more southern part of the plan being more enclosed. And we can go on.
Okay, so going on, this chapter is all intents and purposes the starting point of our project. We have defined the interactive language and the concept to follow through the design process. Our strategy was to communicate with the user through the contrast between tradition and innovation, public and private, natural and artificial elements, as well as a balance between internal and external spaces. Our visual connection is given by the known and unknown concept that welcomes the user in a traditional familiar setting, slowly introducing the aspect of innovation. The process is expressed through the insertion within several principles, footballs with very varying heights, and materials from a hierarchical division between functions without any attachment to the existing structure. Creating in this way a clear distinction between then and now. The higher the football is, the higher the innovation aspect. So as you can see, we created a transition towards innovation of the known and a domestic feeling with the unknown, and a domestic feeling with the futuristic approach of the known in form of tradition and innovation that we combined to the concept of insertion. What if we inserted inside the space are the footballs, the volume, and the nature. These three kind of insertions created our habitat that is composed by visitors and startups, so the public part and the semi and private area. Going on, we have this transition versus innovation experience. The digital interaction sees upon arrival as a screen along the walls, as you can see here on the right part, providing a preview towards the activities. The visitors are guided to download the Habitat app, access to all the offered services with an additional explanatory guidance, whether it's to order food, book a table, or reserve a workshop. The users can also find relevant information regarding the vertical farms production. For example, also idea to how to combat waste or understanding how the fresh market products come to life. The traditional aspect is therefore exhibited to the actual activity, while the innovation can be seen in the process of how the activity is approached. The innovative concept of the startups is expressed through their work, in a constant research of new ways of approaching food processing. And finally, the core of these functions is found in the inserted volume, as said before, the vertical farms, providing ingredients for the entire site to work in harmony. So our design development, by combining the information and concept of the previous phases, we developed our first spatial hypothesis that included materials, finishes, and furnishings. To better understand the space and immerse ourselves in it, we started a creative ideation process by drawing and interacting with the CAD plans and as well as creating axonometric visions. So as you can see on the right side, our material board and our three main ideas was a bright and uniform atmosphere, contrasting elements and play with reflection. With minimal alteration of the existing materials and additional of new tones, the aim was for us to create a bright and uniform welcoming atmosphere. So now you can see here our final distribution after all the reviews and all the changing inside it. This was the insertion development. I will try to zoom in just to show you quickly all the size. So the outdoor dining, the gathering garden, the bar, and the dining, storage and services, vertical farms, and all of it. In the south part of the space, we have the startup areas, the market on the left, and the bar here. I will not bore you with this distribution, so the technical plan. So I will go on and show you the material plans. So as you can see here, the first level is a concrete in ground zero that connects the exterior and the bar and dining area. Going on, we have the second footboard in ceramic tiles at a different height that connects the workshop and the laboratories. And then in the last part, we have the third footboard that is covered with carpet tiles, human nature carpet tiles, at the higher level that connects startups and working areas inside the space. And finally, as we said before, the nature insertion inside the space, indoor and outdoor, that is covering all the gaps that the footballs are creating inside the space. So here you can see our axonometric views with all the changes that we have made, opening the 49th arch with our urban reactivation and creation of new flows, the new north facade and a guttering space. So going on, you can see better the different heights of our footboards with the insertion of the central volume that were hosting our hydroponic cultures that were serving all the activities that are happening inside the space. And finally, the lighting system that are inside the space and the natural insertion. Going on, our urban reactivation, you can see here on the right, on the upper part, how the area is. And on the down below, you can see our urban reactivation proposal. Here is the section just to understand how important was for us this urban reactivation proposal. So you can actually create a connection to the city by simply opening an arch. And then we've done our user experience that was very important from the point of view of the reactivation of the site. Since habitat is a space linked to the interaction between public and private, we have placed an important focus on the user experience. We have used thematic maps of the movement of the flows to try to create the most interesting and pleasant experience possible to the user, and we have developed a digital support that would allow space to be connected with the main connection channels. Going on, this was our storyboard. We had a little fun here, just placing us inside the storyboard. The story aims to show a possible use of the space, showing through speeches and actions part of the habitat can generate. The storyboard shows 4 people, us, meeting and discussing the possibilities that workshop spaces offer. They would like to register for a workshop that will take place next week, and propose also to participate in a TED Talk in the same period. The illustrations show different environments. Initially, we see the urban reactivation intervention applied there, that Alessandro, that is not here, is the protagonist. And then the protagonist is moving to the 49th arch, to the new opening, just seeing the shop windows and everything, and they meet at the bar in the 15th arch. Going on, our user experience specifically for the startups, the concentration of the startup experience is mainly focused in the southeast area, as you can see. The atmosphere gradually becomes more private as one moves to the space from the arrival point here. From the open brainstorming area and communal kitchen towards open and closed offices with meeting rooms, in the endpoint serves as a technical lab and kitchen for products development, as you can see here. The user experience of the visitors, the majority of the exterior area, whether as a passage or a gathering space, is used, as you can see, as the visitors that cannot access the startup areas. And then I don't know if you can see well, but the user experience of the staff that is mainly responsible for the maintenance of the vertical farms in terms of both distribution and transformation of the products. And then here you can see the joint flux of three main targets: users, startups, visitors, and staff. And that's it for my part.
Okay, so I will continue on. So in this chapter of spatial design, in this phase, we further developed each zone with the strategy of insertion, as we previously mentioned, and considering the insertion of both natural and, let's say, technological elements as our main approach when it comes to spatial design itself. The indoor plantation is implemented within the gaps of raised footboards and the existing internal walls. On the next slide, we have provided specifications on different varieties of both vegetables and herbs that are grown directly on the site, as well as indoor plant species, in order to fully understand how to maintain them. So one of the main roles of planting was to differentiate each zone and activities by placing diverse species within each areas. And on the next slide, so basically as a whole part of the project, each one of us had an individual part and work that we need to fully develop. So within the portfolio book, we have only implemented some part of the projects that were most important and relevant. So for example, here, focusing more on the spatial design and detailing, Emmanuel further developed a footboard design, aiming to find a typology of flooring that is both sustainable and inspired by nature. So this accessible and autonomous planting system works in a traditional way with the presence of soil, as we can see here on the detailing, and it is contained in a special insulating membrane. So integrating also lighting in the lower part of the footboards creates a visual effect highlighting the plants in each area. And on the next slide is a continuation of the individual part. It is focused more on the researching on the plantation's benefits, mainly increasing positive atmosphere and well-being for the workers, also helps control the humidity and ventilation, and it basically establishes a very healthy working environment, let's say. So one of the materials that are used for the footboards is called the human nature carpet tiles that are very modular and they can be arranged in any way, thus creating a natural landscape on the flooring. So on the next slide, we move on to food laboratories and its equipment that is required. So we have provided a list of that needed equipment that is used for the invention of unique and innovative food prototypes. So for each equipment, we have specified its usage for better understanding how much space do we actually need for it to actually store it and operate them. On this slide, we have the section where we have pointed out numerous activities and functions that we have incorporated within the space. So due to the scope and the dimensions of the location for each zone, we have kind of zoomed in on the main elements and actions for a clearer view of the areas. And another section showcases the spatial design of the market and the bar with the focus on the vertical farm that simultaneously unites and divides the two activities. So as a result of placing the required LED growth light within the vertical farm, it forms a vibrant atmosphere at the same time drawing the attention to the main inserted volume that hosts it. And on the next slide, we have a more, let's say, technical and detailed section of the open office area for the startups and the volume that is hosting the vertical farm, together with the material choice for the construction itself. So using perforated horizontal panels, glass and steel for the structural framing, it created a pattern wall that divides the farm from the rest of the area, at the same time establishing a visual effect with admitting LED growth light through and providing glimpse of the interior of the farm. So this kind of development has led to another individual part of the project that was done by Alessandro. So on the next slide, we can see his individual work that was focused around the construction detailing of the inserted volume structure. So aiming to provide a closed environment for the farm, the structure is consisted of T-shaped beams that is in-hole detached from the existing building and internal walls, and it is placed on the raised footboard that we have inserted. So using prefabricated elements, it helped to construct various details of the volume itself, as we can see here in the slides. And here, following the same principle of the form and materialization as well, and taking into account the arches, we have inserted the frame structures in the rest of the interior with the goal of combining tradition and innovation with the functional purpose. So this is achieved through different types, actually 3 different types of structures. The first one with attached digital screens used for workshop events, used in the market for displaying information about the products that are sold, and also in co-working areas used for presentations. The second type is with the attached hydroponic plants and integrated LED lighting that is primarily used in the market and the bar, providing fresh edible products and ingredients, and also in the labs for startups, research and experimentation. And the third type is the one with integrated shelves and also LED lighting that is placed in the market, workshop and labs for storing the equipment and exhibiting products. So these structures are shaped due to the existing interior form, as I said, with the arches, and they are detached from the existing architecture as they are joined with the wires on the ceiling and also placed and detached in the gaps on the floor. So on the next slide, we see the interior design. So we have developed the zones starting from the market. So the visuals or the visual here demonstrates the aimed atmosphere and also the functions, as well as the inserted elements that we have listed down on the right side, from the materialization of the footboard to the natural features that are used. So the focus again is the sustainability and transparency of the food production that is produced on the site, and it is emphasized through the variety of both natural and digital elements. And then we have the workshop. So the interior of the workshop is characterized through the actions that are taking place, such as courses and events, and again, a virtual guide to these events by using our established Habitat Hub. So here again, providing a legend of materials and features that are implemented within the space led to an individual development due to its transformability and flexibility required. So we have the counter design. So my colleague Christina, this is her individual part. She wanted to tackle the aspect of sustainability in furniture design, as it is a main facet of the zone. So raising awareness on food reuse, she has developed a counter island, merging flexibility and functionality consistent of the worktop, the table, water filter and composter. So basing the overall process of food reuse, the outcome is a fully transformable workshop counter that provides 3 scenarios of use, as we can see on the right. And basically by expanding the wooden volume, it creates an additional space for seating and working. And through incorporation of waste reuse, the counter becomes a living organism itself, traditional at first glance and innovative in its hidden functions. So on the next slide, we have the co-working's open setting that is used for startup brainstorming and project development, and it illustrates a vibrant and healthy working atmosphere. And the concept of tradition and innovation is reflected through the integration of wooden furniture and insertion of the main volume that establishes a unique atmosphere. So moving on from the interior to the exterior, the urban reactivation is most evident in the 49th arch. By fully opening it, it became a main pathway and circulation with inserted digital screens on the existing walls on both sides. And that interconnection through digitalization, conceptually merging indoors and outdoors, creates an intriguing atmosphere for the user, serving its awareness and introductory purpose. So we have the exterior. Here we can see the visual of the south entrance that effectively shows the reactivation and also actions taking place, at the same time offering views of the interior, more specifically the market. And by opening the arch, that leads the users for further exploration, let's say, of the site that regenerates the entrance area on both sides. So as a final part of the project is an individual part done by me. So the whole concept is applied on an urban scale through the wayfinding system, merging reactivation with the insertion of elements. So this individual part has the aim of creating multiple wayfinding, or let's say habitat stations in the surrounding area, which ultimately leads the users to our site and also introduce various activities. So each station has incorporated benches with integrated USB charging ports, also digital displays with free Wi-Fi spots and in-ground LED stripes and plants. So to establish the connection, we have created a Habitat app, which we previously mentioned. And basically, it is available through scanning the QR code on the station, actually from the digital display. And after registration, the user can explore the Habitat site and also the stations by simply scanning the plants on the spot. So since the same plant species on the stations are located within a specific zone on the site as well, it forms a relation of the activities and also offers users relevant information and guide to our site. So on the next slide, we can actually see the map with the wayfinding distribution, so connecting multiple locations to our site of intervention. And also these multifunctional stations combine the virtual and physical aspect of interaction that follows the main principle of our project's aim. And on the right, on the visual, we can see one of the Habitat stations in its full use and all of the elements that are incorporated. And lastly, to summarize the overall project, let's say we have managed to create an effective system for urban reactivation that is based on the future of food, so merging public life and also shared work. We have established a community that is hosted in a dynamic space revolved around sustainable and innovative approaches. And although the main facet is food, the Habitat pushes towards the formation of a greater awareness that is related to work, leisure, and education as well. So this is it. We can conclude it here.
It's fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you
very much,
so
guys.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a great presentation, really exciting to, see everything back. And it's so good you've been really able to have this interpretation of interiors, like really something that connects the human to so many different aspects, so ranging from the city. So it's not that interiors deals just like with closed and enclosed rooms, but like deals with every aspect of the experience, as you mentioned. So ranging from the connection with this urban reactivation that is one of the first ideas that came through, down to little details on how you actually use your telephone and personal connection in order to get there. So it's really super exciting and excellent outcome.
Thank you.
I'm really interested to know how you work together. How do you collaborate? It's not an easy thing to do.
Well, I mean, it was good, actually. It was a good collaboration because we already knew each other from before. So the online thing wasn't that difficult because we kind of had the same ideas, the same approach and everything. So, of course, sometimes it was more difficult to actually establish something and develop, but mostly it was okay. I think it was like brand new to all of us because it was completely online, something completely different that we are all used to. So I guess all of us had to quickly adapt to like new forms of collaborating and working together. But basically everything was online, so many hours of video calling and brainstorming and working together. But I don't know, I speak for myself. I guess my colleagues feel the same. I don't know. But overall, it was a good collaboration, I would say.
Were you using any particular bits of software to help you, visualize your kind of collaborations, or was it mostly kind of verbal? Were you kind of sharing screens? How did you do it?
I think it was the beginning, so we weren't really that adapted, and we haven't really used any softwares. I remember we would just be sending each other sketches and photos of our sketches.
Yeah.
But we would draw like in Photoshop, let's say, through screen sharing, and that's how we would brainstorm, which was definitely taking more time than it would have normally, but
yeah,
we didn't have any other way.
Yeah.
But also, Emma, you had like
that was I was saying
our savior.
The most important thing I think is to have a graphic table, just to share the screen and draw like on air, and that's very, very important, because you don't lose time like sharing photos or something like that. You just breathe together in front of a screen. It's different, but it works. The output is good. So
it's a good tip. Thank you. Surely there's some questions.
Yeah, it hasn't got to be a question. I mean, it can be a question, can also be like a comment or something you've seen. I think we've seen so many good things, from ideas on how they actually came up. And I think that was very clear from the very beginning. So they had really clear ideas, and the development's been quite smooth from the very beginning. But I think also in terms of the communication skills. So, everything that we've seen, I think it's really high quality, from the visual to the technical drawings. And even if I find always very difficult to have a black background, I think your presentation is a demonstration, on how beautiful this can be. So, it's probably the first time I would, really like something presented with a black, background. But I think also in terms of visuals, your visuals are at the same time somehow realistic, but really able to communicate atmosphere. And for example, how did you do those? Do you use different softwares?
Well, the exterior visuals, I mean, actually all of the visuals are photoshopped.
Yeah.
Just to be honest. Everything is photoshopped. It's a photo montage. We used like the existing photos of the site or from Google Maps, basically, and then we just placed layers and layers in Photoshop, and that was it. Maybe it took longer time to make them instead of actually 3D modeling the site, but in this way, I think it was effective. To show a certain atmosphere and also the actions in each zone that are taking place and so on. So yeah, everything was done in Photoshop, basically.
Sophie was the expert of that part. Yeah, in the group,
Yes.
Like Sophia was the one that.
The Photoshop girl.
We are
people, PNG people.
We defined
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a very, very coherent presentation, and I think when you're working collaboratively, that's quite difficult, because surely everybody has like a job to do this page or this particular thing, and even though you each had kind of separate parts of the design, and Sophie, you said, oh, this was my part and this was Christina's part, but it's not clear, like, it looks very coherent, and it looks very much like a good collaboration, because there's not different kind of competing styles on the design or even on the presentation. It all feels very much like it works together very well.
Yes, I completely agree, because I remember now the first thing that we established was like, okay, guys, we use this font, these colors, this is our color palette.
Yeah, that's my point. I mean, I think in order for it to work, then you kind of had to make those decisions very early, and then to be very kind of consistent about this is the way that we present. So I think that really shows how important it is to make those decisions kind of early, and then to do all of your work on that basis. I mean, if you're collaborating, you're kind of forced to, because you have to agree those things. But I think for our students to kind of learn, or to notice that it's really important to kind of like think quite quickly and early about how am I going to present things, or what's the best way to show the ideas that I have behind this project.
Yes, I agree completely. So thankfully we managed to do it early on, so it wasn't a problem after, let's say.
Okay, any questions from anyone? I think they are probably thinking, oh my God, am I supposed to do anything like that?
Nah.
Especially the year 3 ones, you know?
I have a question for you, actually. Let me permit it. I was curious of what's the topic of this year. What's the brief of your course this year? Because actually we are kind of, you know, like we are presenting ours, but I'm really curious of what is the topic this year and what's your brief.
Okay, who's gonna respond to them? From year 3. You don't want me to name you, come on.
It's just a curiosity, it's nothing.
Yeah.
Not a secret. We're just hoping somebody will
volunteer.
Volunteer there and stuff.
Christine. Sorry. Iman, yes.
Poor Iman. You are the first initial on my screen as well.
Hello?
Hi, Iman.
I didn't actually hear the question properly because my connection was really bad, but
They're just asking for you to tell them what the theme is this year and the kind of things that you've been researching.
So they had edible futures last year, as you did actually, because in year 2 you had a bit of edible futures as well in term 1. But they were curious to know what are we working on this year.
Okay, so we're working on let me get the brief out. So home futures.
That was actually that was also our problem, you know, at the beginning.
Idea of home and like what the meaning of home is for each person. So in relation to my project, I related my design project to my writing portfolio. So we had like 3 research strands. One was home identities, home technologies, and home ecologies. So from the one I picked was home identities. So it talks about like gendered spaces and the meaning of home and things like that. So for me, I looked at like the gendered space and the relationship of the home with women. So everyone's doing like very different projects based on their research strand. So yeah, like for me, I'm creating a space that's like a home for women who have gone through trauma, and some people are looking at like I know Leah is doing like a space that's very innovative and like technological in relation to home technologies. And yeah, so that's, I hope that's a good definition of our brief.
yeah. It's home futures. That's the overarching thing they are dealing with, and we are working in a different area as well. So it's Smithsville Market area in London. You mentioned the writing portfolio, Iman. I'm not sure they know what a writing portfolio is. You want to tell them what it is?
So it's the dissertation that we have to write. So it was that was connected with the 3 research strands, and from that we wrote like a lot of, like, how many words is it? 4,000 to 6,000 words on our topic. And yeah, yes, it was related to home and that our specific research strand.
Yeah, the writing portfolio, it's mainly writing outcome that they do when they are in year 3. It's connected to the project, but it's a standalone outcome that is got a grading, gets graded by itself. I'm not sure in Italy there is anything like that, because the thesis is really much more merged, so the 2 things are together. I think the writing, but here they are connected. So as Man said, of course, they come from this kind of research strands, but it's not, the writing is not hasn't got to be, at least, the super connected to the design outcome, which most of the time is something that comes first. So it's kind of a bad research. So that's quite different. Thank you, Man.
Yes, thank you.
Any other question or comment?
Emma, do you have any other questions?
No, but it's interesting to know, like, what's the difference from the different teams and topics and briefs, just to have an idea of how is.
Emmanuel, are you joining us for a review? Are you saying you want to join us for a review? Because that's always an option, you see. So if you join us with a review, you'll get
You'll get great insight into that.
Yeah.
Why not?
So you got the dates. Let
That's
me
kind
know
of
when
yes, I think.
you're going to be available for.
Everyone's shy today.
Yeah, we want to be shy this month. So, okay, so maybe the last question could be, like, really, can you give them a tip? So the situation here is slightly different. So right now, for example, for year 3, so the reason the thesis is not on top of the courses, but actually the course they are doing now, it's the course in which they will produce what we call their final, the major project. So for them, this Home Future one, it's the thesis project. It's not going to happen. There isn't anything else, and they will finish, hopefully, all of you, by mid-May. That's when the deadline is. So it means that now they're really, like, in a very important phase of development of the project. They know they all have a topic. They all have their own brief. So they know exactly what they're designing. They've got a site. They have investigated. They know who the users are and the actions, and they are actually starting designing. So from now on, it's going to be really kind of dense. But here, everything is individual. So there is very little room for working together. We try to do that a little bit at the beginning of the year when there is more kind of research-based activities. But then design, it's like one by one. It's individual, and of course, this online situation makes it even more isolating, because even if you are dealing with your own project, of course, if you sit in a room where everybody's got his own stuff, it's quite easy to have informal, iteration or discussion. And but of course now it's slightly more, as you perfectly know, it's slightly more artificially. If you really want to exchange something with somebody, you've got to make it happen. It's not something that happens by itself. So it's slightly more energy consuming, I think, as well. So have you got, but this is the situation you are all in at the moment, so it's nothing specific. Yeah. So have you got any tip for them, just to, support them through this last few weeks, really?
Well, good luck, guys. No, but I think it's very different, because I can't quite imagine working completely individual online. I mean, I kind of can, because we are now doing the master thesis and it's completely individual. And of course, it's easier in this kind of situation to work in group, because you, as you said, you don't have that feeling of isolation, being completely alone by yourself in front of a computer, talking to your screen and so on. But I guess that, I don't know, for example, I've talked to Christina about it, because we've started our master thesis, and as I've mentioned, it's completely individual. But even though we are working by ourselves, like, we can always call each other and discuss about our projects and maybe help one another in some way or something. So it's always good to have like a second opinion. And because personally, when I work on something like alone, at one point, I don't even know if it's good, when you're like so immersed in that one thing, and you just need a second opinion and someone to give you some kind of a comment and tell you what he or she thinks and so on. But like, other than that, I don't have any tips. Maybe my colleagues have better ones.
But that's a good tip. But it's a good tip. So
it's a really good tip. I think that yeah, as you said, Sophia, it's very easy to kind of get so close to your project that you can't see, like, the obvious decision or even tell whether it's good or not. And I think definitely it's good for our students to kind of remember that they can bounce ideas off each other, that they can, it's not just a question of being around for studio and being connected when, we're talking to one student, the others are listening, but it's also about communicating independently with each other in terms of, maybe there's a particular buddy that you have and you're like, you can send them an email and say, oh, I'm stuck, what should I do in this area? It's definitely allowed. It's definitely encouraged. I mean, it's really helpful to do.
I think that, like, collaboration is key. So even though you're not like technically working with someone on a specific project, it doesn't mean that you don't need help or something like that.
Absolutely.
There's always, I know that maybe there are some people who maybe know some case studies that could be helpful for me that I've never heard before, and they can, tell me. So maybe they will give some insights for the project and so on. So basically, I mean, virtual or physical collaboration, it's always like helpful for the project, I think.
Don't be jealous of your ideas, like share them.
Yes,
because it's really, really important to share them and to understand it, like, even when working alone, it's worse. Sharing the ideas is important to understand what others are doing, what are the level, what is the average, what are the ideas. So don't be jealous of them. Share them. And no, it's true, because
true.
When you have an idea, you are so jealous of it. You want to keep it for yourself, but it's not like that. It's like
I mean, even if it's the opposite page, that you feel like your idea is super stupid. I think we've been there a lot together.
Yeah, but I mean, it
may feel like that, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a bad one. I don't know.
Exactly.
Sure. And the idea that you have, I mean, it might not suit your project, it might suit somebody else's, or vice versa. And like that, I think Emmanuel is exactly right. There's no ownership of ideas, and any idea can be applied to every single project, and everybody's projects are different anyway. So, the project it's rarely just one big idea. It's lots of things working together. And so the more feedback we can get and the more we can kind of stress test these thoughts that we have, then the better the final result will be.
Yes, and then I would say, it's very difficult to have really good ideas, really bad ideas. You know, it's not like the lottery that you pick the right one or the wrong one. But most of the times it's ideas, and they might fit better or worse. But then when you talk through, your ideas with everybody else, then you tweak them. So it's about developing ideas, really. So it's not like, oh, I really need to get, this genius idea straight away and go for it, because sometimes the process is not so straight, and ideas, they need to be developed. But in order to be developed, they really need, few people around, I would say. So, you need your tutors that maybe they've got, one sort of view, and then you need colleagues and peers and friends and family, and, even people that is not strictly involved into the design process, but they can actually contribute a lot and testing things. You can use so many people. So ideas are, they need to be developed. So it's one idea, maybe it doesn't feel like it's the perfect one, but then, it gets transformed into the perfect project.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so thank you so much, guys. It's been really a pleasure.
For inviting us.
Really a pleasure to have you here. For everybody else, their portfolio, it is in the resources in Teams. So if you want to, have a closer look and maybe read it through, of course, because we had a kind of a small screen to look at this morning. It's been lovely, and really good luck, and keep me posted on what you're going to be doing next.
We will.
Thank you very much.
Good luck, everyone.
Yeah, good luck, guys.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Okay, I think we need to change the room. Well, this is a specific one, and then Yetsu will go back to Yetsu.
Let's move straight across to our just general channel, and I'll see you there in a moment.
And the same for year 3, we're gonna move to the general channel, in which we've got few tutorials lot booked, and it's going to be me and Gavin